Did you hear the news? I'm going to be the host for Fippy Fest. I've got a sneak peek at what you can expect. I'm also talking EQ history, Vaashkaani, and test your EQ knowledge along with the devs, all in this episode of the EverQuest Show.
I'm on top of the world, now I'm living, and the good just gets better, keeps on giving. Not even close to the end, it's just beginning. Life is getting lighter while the days are getting brighter. Gotta celebrate life and get excited about good times, good living. Come on, shout it out. Hey, take it up, take it over, take it out of control. Today I'm freeing my soul, and now you got me singing.
Welcome to the third season of the EverQuest Show. I'm fading here in the EverQuest Show studios, but by the time you watch this, I will have left for Fippy Fest. Fippy Fest is being held in San Diego at the San Diego Comic-Con Museum on June 14th and 15th. In-person tickets have already been closed, but you can still purchase digital tickets for the remainder of the year if you wanted to get in on those in-game items. Friday, June 14th is mainly for those in-person attendees, but on June 15th, everyone will be able to watch a live stream. It will be available to watch for free on the EverQuest YouTube channel. And trust me, you are going to want to check it out. Here's why. First of all, the stream will begin at 10 a.m. Pacific time and run all day long. That's 7 hours of content. There's going to be a welcome address, lots of info, and an in-game scavenger hunt around midday for both EverQuest and EverQuest II. A really cool Art of EverQuest panel, other panels including the making of EverQuest expansions, and Q&As with the devs. And if that doesn't get your attention, how about this? Remember last episode when I teased this? What's a secret or an Easter egg that people may not know about the game that you know?
Soon to come, there is a new, and that is just amazing. And you can't talk about that for a little bit.
I know, I know. It's related to a similar tease that was given at PAX East in March.
Expect something big.
Well, you're going to get a look at exactly what that is at Fippy Fest and some expansion tease info as well. Now remember, that's at Fippy Fest, which is live on Saturday, June 15th. I'll be there. I'll be hosting the event. This will be live streamed on the EverQuest YouTube channel, absolutely free for everyone to watch. Now recently we had the launch of the Teek and the Tormax servers, and they've been a huge hit. Okay, well Teek has for sure been a big hit, but you can actually catch me on Tormax when I have a chance to play and when I'm not playing my main fading over on Tunair. In the early game of EQ, hot buttons and macros are really a novelty more than anything else. Set up an auto inventory for your forage or use that macro to send a tell when you're rezzing as you click your res stick. All of those things are relatively simple to do with macros. But as the game matures and AAs become more plentiful, the screen can quickly become overloaded with hot buttons. But did you know you can assign icons to those buttons? So I'm a visual player, and in a sea of hot buttons, I want to quickly identify that oh no hotkey that could make the difference in a raid. For any macro, hot button, or AA hotkey, simply right-click and hold the hot button, then choose Assign Icon. You can choose from any of the spell gem icons, buff icons, and even some EQ2 icons that have been brought in. You can even use any of the item icons in the game. I like to make the icon look like the spell that I'm casting, or the buff that goes out. Make your root fling AA look like the root icon, your cures, MGB heals, and all your other hotkeys, where time is of the essence can now easily be visually found by putting whatever icon you want on your hotkeys. On Teek and Tormax, EverQuest players are enjoying what I like to call the classical age of EverQuest. But how has EverQuest changed over the years? I thought about it, and here's some other ages that I came up with. If you've played EverQuest long enough, you start to look back at different periods of development and expansions and notice ebbs and flows. Due to both internal changes within the team and external business and industry shifts, the history of EverQuest also can be divided into various eras, periods of time that are separated by game-changing shifts in development. After pondering these eras and what would define them, I settled on dividing EverQuest into ages, grouped by expansions. Expansions are a natural way to divide up the game as they often provide distinct art styles, gameplay, features, developer staffing, project management, and more. Those distinctions have a real impact on the feel of EverQuest at those times. So here's my look at EverQuest through the ages. The list here is only going to consider defining the ages for EverQuest Live, not the EverQuest franchise as a whole. Perhaps that's something for a future episode. Let's start with what I like to call the Classical Age. It's the birth of the game and its rise to power. The Classical Age includes the original launch in March of 1999 through the third expansion. Rose-colored glasses often tint the view of the early days of EverQuest. Indeed, it was a good time for EverQuest. The player base and lands of Norrath were growing quickly and vastly. In just a couple of short years, the game had expanded to 2 additional continents and the moon, and already thoughts of a sequel were well underway. It is often this era of EverQuest that the most nostalgic players look back to. Fond memories of a different time, not only in EverQuest, but in the industry in general. MMORPGs were a relatively young genre, and the competition within the genre and the entertainment industry was a fraction of what it is today. The game was harder and less forgiving then, corpse runs, fewer features and comforts of the modern game that made it more endearing to some. Then we enter the Golden Age of EverQuest. The Golden Age marks the pinnacle of EverQuest's popularity and development. Now, the beginning of the age is not well defined, and it's really just an extension of the Classical Age. It is mostly defined as the peak of EverQuest, a maturity in the game's development, refining the differentiation between casual players and raiders, and Plains of Power is the behemoth here, as the subsequent expansions, Legacy of Acacia and Lost Dungeons of Norrath, were along for the ride as pop powered on strongly. Now, the cataclysmic shift in the game and the defining end to the Golden Age of EverQuest was the arrival of Gates of Discord and the events that followed in the industry. Then came the Discord Age. This age was perhaps the most defining shift in the game, the industry, and development due to a variety of reasons. This also could be known as the Dark Age of EverQuest, though I didn't want to give it a negative connotation. However, it is well documented that it was a difficult time for the game. Discord not only aptly describes this age of EverQuest, but also refers to the lore within the game that took a turn to focus on the armies of Discord that dominated these expansions. Gates of Discord launched in February of 2004 and was fraught with problems. Bugs and tuning errors in the launch turned many players away. Omens of War remedied some of those issues, but the damage had been done. Combine that with the arrival of EverQuest II in late 2004 and the launch of World of Warcraft just before the end of 2004, and things became more difficult for EverQuest very quickly. EverQuest finally had significant competition, which drastically reduced the player base. As we move away from the armies of Discord, we enter the Lost Age. It's a stuck-in neutral. That's a great way to describe this age. Starting with Dragons of Norrath, the level cap was stuck at 70 for 4 full expansions since the Omens of War. Still struggling from the Discord Age, the direction of the lore in the game seemed haphazard. No major content change, no new continents or level cap increases, just feature additions and a few bells and whistles. Thankfully, this age did not last long before needed changes were finally made. And then we enter the Renaissance Age. With the release of the Serpent Spine, EverQuest seemed to find itself again. TSS offered a new race, and the expansion was touted to be essentially a new game. You could level from 1 to 75, all within the new expansion. A new starting city, new zones for all levels, and progression every step of the way. This breathed new life into the game. The expansion seemed large, and the world was vast again, especially when compared to the expansions of the Lost Age. While the Buried Sea was somewhat of an outlier in this age, Secrets of Phaedor and Seeds of Destruction brought EverQuest back to its roots. SOF brought us back to Phaedor with a good-sized expansion on the continent that is dear to so many. Good content, progression, and lore helped to solidify EverQuest getting back on the right foot. Seeds of Destruction continue with many of the same well-liked themes, revisiting some of the story staples from the lore of Norrath to fix the timeline. Though the introduction of mercenaries may have had some side effects, it was a necessary evil in this state of the game. This age of EverQuest also is mostly well-defined by its end, the release of the Underfoot. The Underfoot's difficulty was a source of great controversy among players, and had a similar effect to Gates of Discord at the end of the Golden Age. With the release of House of Thule, the heroic age arrives. Several strong expansions released in consecutive years, each with level cap increases, help to usher in the new age of EverQuest. This is the maturing, modern EverQuest, though some would argue the expansions were slightly cookie-cutter. Level cap increases had found their stride, and developers knew what players expected. Even non-cap increase expansions of Call of the Forsaken and The Broken Mirror provided at least enough content to keep players busy without just ramping up difficulty, see Gates of Discord and Underfoot. And Heroic is a reference to heroic characters, which initially started at 85 and used the House of Thule expansion for a starting area, as it's such a defining new era in the game. And as EverQuest approached its 20 years in development, the caretakers of the game were wise to tap into nostalgia. Players look back on the classical era of EverQuest fondly, and gaining new players in such a large, mature game with such a steep learning curve is less and less likely, so the target was placed on getting previous players to return. TLP servers rose in popularity, and EverQuest began to flourish again. Meanwhile, the new content focuses on revisiting places from the early days. Empires of Kunark and Ring of Scale go back to Kunark in 2 expansions, while the Burning Lands revisits Plains of Power content from the Golden Era. Playing to that success, Torment of Velius returns to the Frozen Continent, along with Claws of Vishen. EverQuest returned to Luckland with the 2 subsequent expansions, Terror of Luckland and Night of Shadows. And with the launch of the 30th expansion for EverQuest's Lorien Song, have we entered a new era for development of EverQuest? While there are bits of nostalgia and the history of EverQuest built into the expansion, it doesn't seem to be a direct revisit of previous content. But it's too soon to determine what will define the next age of EverQuest. EverQuest II has always been a beautiful game, but in the latest expansion, The Ballads of Zamara, the artistic beauty of the game was taken to a new level, and this was a conscious decision by the developers.
It's kind of funny because it all goes back to the original Freeport and the original launch of EQ2 where everything was kind of brown, right? And so it's been my thing for years where it's like, I want color, let's go colorful. We want to go as colorful as possible.
And one of the more colorful zones in Ballads of Zamara is Vaashkaani. During the making of Ballads of Zamara, the role of creating the indoor zones fell to Rick Randolph.
The whole time I worked on the Jin's Palace.
There was a lot in that too.
Well, yeah, really. Well, I know.
Tell me some of the things that I mean, it seems like there was a lot that was crammed into that.
We had to come up with a kaleidoscope theme and trying to integrate this moving texture throughout the zone, putting it as, you know, it looked like a kaleidoscope, but it was animating that we did on the ship with the windows and just things, plaques on the wall. As background artists on EverQuest II, we really got a lot of freedom to make stuff look how we want it to look. There's an EverQuest style, but you can look at zones and say, oh yeah, he did that. You create pieces, like a hallway piece, specific to a certain design, like the color, the palette, just the whole design of the zone, the style of it, and then you kind of build out from there, wall textures and then, just putting it all together.
And the end result is certainly worth it, but the designers are always looking for ways to go even further.
Each zone, each year, has to be better than the last, and that's the pressure, sort of. That Jin's Palace zone I did has to be better than the one that was the year before. And it has to be, so that's a lot of pressure.
When EverQuest launched 25 years ago, things were very different. The internet, gaming, even the entire world. But how well do you remember what the world was like 25 years ago? I've interviewed a lot of developers and fans on the world of EverQuest, but how well do they remember the real world when the game launched?
It's 1999.
November of 1999?
Oh, that's a good question. I know it was March of 1999.
March, okay.
16th it launched, 19th was when I could finally actually stay logged in.
Oh dear.
So I decided to play a little game, and you can play along as well.
I'm going to give you a thing, and you tell me if you think it is older or if EverQuest is older.
I love this game. I play this all the time. Let's see what we got.
Okay.
Okay, EverQuest is older than dirt.
I am older than EverQuest.
All right, got it? So, which is older, EverQuest or?
Now, EverQuest from launch or EverQuest from beta?
From launch. From launch. We'll go from the official launch date, but that's a good question.
All right, which is older?
gonna get a lot of this wrong.
I have very bad time sense. We'll see how we go.
So the first one is relatively easy. Which came first, EverQuest or Netflix?
EverQuest is older.
Netflix.
EverQuest?
Netflix.
Definitely EverQuest.
EverQuest.
It's been around for a while.
That's Netflix.
Netflix must be after.
After.
I would say that EverQuest is older than Netflix.
Netflix was after.
EverQuest would be older. I think Netflix.
Younger than EQ.
I want to say EverQuest.
I mean, Netflix has been around, since the early envelope days, so I almost would say Netflix is older.
That is correct. Netflix is older.
Was there a version of Netflix before EQ?
Was it available to people then?
What?
Netflix was already a video rental company, I seem to recall.
Shut up.
Really?
It was the thing where they would send you discs, right? So it was like Blockbuster online.
Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, that was part of as like the rental stores were dying.
The mail order Blockbuster.
I forgot about the CDs, yeah.
Oh, the disc, you're right.
I even had one of those little trays.
That was during my AOL days.
Get a disc in the mail.
In the mailbox, yeah. Remember when we used to get mail? No.
I remember the boxes.
I never used that feature as I was like a child.
Which do you think is older, EverQuest or Twitter?
I think EverQuest.
EQ.
EverQuest?
EverQuest.
EverQuest?
I would guess EQ.
EverQuest.
I'm gonna guess EQ again.
I would say EverQuest again.
I'm gonna say EverQuest.
I know that one.
EverQuest is definitely older than Twitter.
Well, now I feel like this is a trick question.
See, now I'm worried about my answers.
EverQuest is much older than Twitter. EverQuest is better than Twitter, to this day, especially to this day.
Ooh, I would go EverQuest on that one.
EverQuest did come first. Twitter wasn't until 2006.
If I quit now, I got 100% score.
That's right. Yeah, you're doing great.
We're not gonna.
The iPhone, the first original iPhone.
First original iPhone. That's a tough one.
I want to say iPhone.
EQ.
I think EverQuest.
EQ.
EverQuest.
Oh, it's got to be EverQuest.
I'm gonna say EverQuest. I'm gonna say EverQuest is older.
Oh, EverQuest for sure. I didn't get an iPhone until like 2011 or something.
I couldn't afford an iPhone for a long time.
I had the first one and then I went to Android.
I am a long time Android user that now uses an iPhone.
Really?
That is surprising.
I got my first iPhone in high school.
I got a flip phone in early 2000s.
Don't you tell me, young man.
Did the iPhone come before the iPod? No, it came after the iPod. So I'm going to have to say EQ came first.
That is correct. The iPhone was actually in 2007.
Wow.
Which is later than I thought.
First episode of Sex and the City.
Oh dear.
Oh, that show.
My wife watched it all the time.
I had a perfectly good girlfriend until that show came on.
No idea.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Never watched it.
Don't care. The answer is I don't care when Sex and the City came out.
Never watched that show. I love Sex and the City. I know I was really young when it was popular.
I know the actress is the same one from Hocus Pocus.
That might be old. That is older than EverQuest.
Samantha would be mad at me. EQ.
Samantha from the show.
I don't know Samantha from the show, but that's the name I came off the top of my head from the show.
Yeah. Sex and the City came first.
Okay.
So yeah, 1998 is the day there. Game Boy Color.
I think Game Boy Color was first.
My cousin had one, and I kept on borrowing his, and he'd have to keep on asking me to replace the batteries because I'd burned through all the batteries.
We had a power outage one time that lasted for hours. And I looked down the hall, and everybody's all in the hall with their little Game Boys out, and they've got them all connected.
I had a clear purple Game Boy Color.
Yeah, I remember playing like that Paperboy game on the Game Boy Color. It's like, oh man, this is so amazing.
Dragon Quest III, that was probably the main one.
Played a lot of Tetris, played a lot of Zelda. Mario Tennis, Mario Golf.
I mean, Game Boy period has been around longer, because I remember holding that old yellow screen. Game Boy Color, I think EverQuest is older than Game Boy Color.
It's close, but Game Boy Color has about 5 or 6 months.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
6 months. Wow. Okay.
I was, you know what? I knew, and I went, nah, he's throwing a curveball at me. I got to argue that.
Earlier in the show, we heard a soundbite from one of our developers, but I thought we'd take a minute to get to know Adam Bell.
I'm Adam Bell. design manager for EverQuest. I've been working since October 2005. I think I find doing a zone the most rewarding, but doing everything from end to end, like writing what the zone's going to be, then actually implementing the zone, implementing all the base pop, implementing the quest, and if possible, the raid that goes with that zone. My most infamous is the Ambleshift's amazing Algomator, that monstrous trade skill combine that trade skillers love to hate. Often when I make quests, I'll put in a few dialogues that don't have the nice brackets to tell you, but if you think about what you're talking about, you might be able to figure out what the word is to say. I can give a hint, there's a gnome in the new Shadowhaven that might have extra things to talk about. So if I could snap my fingers and get it done, I would love to have a whole new raft of player models with better attachments for armor and weapons, and along with, a more modern look. It's very old, but it made a huge change. The whole alternate abilities was a huge change to the game, and definitely changed the way players played the game. I love the Alaran because they were sort of my idea, so I really came to love it.
And with this new season of the EverQuest Show, each episode we're going to spotlight a different developer. I'll have many more tips, and we'll highlight a different zone for either EverQuest or EverQuest II and talk about the behind the scenes of how it was created. In the meantime, I'm off to Fippy Fest, but when I get back, I'll have a lot more information about a player meetup here at Gen Con right here in Indianapolis where the EverQuest Show is filmed. That is going to be later this year in August. I'll have more info on that to come. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in NORAD or at Fippy Fest.
We gotta be the best we can be. And though sometimes we don't want to, still we gotta chase our dreams. Reach up and reach high, because we're gonna pull through and give it all we got, even though it can seem hard to catch and make it happen. But we can't start sliding, come on, and do what you gotta do to fight on. And so no matter what comes your way, nothing can ruin your day or even wipe a smile away. And by the time I'm up and out of my bed, I got 100 new ideas floating around in my head, with the hope for tomorrow, a dream that I can see of all the awesome things, the great people we can be. Or maybe by the music or the songs that I sing, I'll change the world with the simple message that I will bring. All I know is that it's out there, there's more to discover, a lot of good things we can learn from one another. Gotta celebrate, laugh, and get excited about good times, the good living. Come on and shout it out. Hey, take it up, take